If we can join hands together, we can reduce malnutrition as well.
Mm.
If we can join hands, we can
Yeah.
do this.
So for those of you who are not from Alton Climate Action Network, just a quick reminder of what we're about. We bring people together in our local community to take positive community action. Our community is in the market town of Alton in the county of Hampshire in southern England. We have lots of different groups and Gumbi is one of them. And we believe very strongly that climate action groups should directly support climate justice to contribute to fairness and equality because the climate crisis impacts most on those with the lowest emissions. So it was on that underlying premise that we formed a partnership with the Gumbi Education Fund back in 2020. Now, Jen, I don't think has joined the call. Jen, are you there? No, she's got issues today. So I will therefore just talk a little bit about John Vidal, who was the founder of the Gumbi Education Fund. He was the environment editor of the Guardian newspaper for 30 years and a global pioneer of environmental journalism. And he set up the Education Fund in Gumbi after visiting Malawi during the Great Famine in 2001-2, when many people died. He died last year, just a year ago, and Jen now leads it and is our chair of trustees. And as I said, we both visited the Gumbi villages in May 2024, met with Patrick, the chief, the elders, and many others. It was a very, very memorable and moving visit. The main education fund pays secondary school fees to about 105 secondary school children at the moment, and university fees and upkeep costs for children and young people in the Gumbi villages. And John and I formed the Gumbi Alton Permaculture project back in 2020 as a new initiative responding to the deepening climate crisis. So the Gumbi villages are in central rural Malawi. So there's a little map on this slide. The blue is the huge Lake Malawi. It was amazing to see that actually. And Gumbi is sort of northwest of Lilongwe, the capital. Over here is Zambia. And if you, those of you who were on our call a couple of years ago with the Permaculture Paradise Institute would have heard Lueo Biswick talk, and they're based in, I can't pronounce this, Patrick will laugh at me, Minchi, on the border with Zambia there. And that's totally wrong, Patrick, I'm sorry. So that's the geographical location. Malawi is one of the poorest countries in the world. I checked this a couple of months ago, and it's on the UN Human Development Index. It's ranked 174 out of 189. Over half the population lives in poverty and 1/5 in extreme poverty. It's quite a small country. It's about the size of England, but with a smaller, though growing population. Could you put yourselves on mute, please? Because I can hear background conversation. I would just make sure everyone can hear. Thank you very much. 80% of people are subsistence farmers, mainly monoculture maize, but the country is responsible for only 0.01% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And it's been badly affected by extreme weather. There was a terrible cyclone down in the south, you may remember from the news last year in the Blantyre area. And the government had to declare a drought disaster in March this year again, because the crops have failed, including the tobacco cash crop, due to lack of rain. These are a few pictures of Gumbi villages, just to give you a feel for what it's like. And Patrick will share the dream that this is all greened, full of trees, full of crops, and we will get there. That will happen. There's a single pump Believe it or not, there is a pump behind those children. You can't take a photograph, as you will all know, in Africa without loads of children coming up and wanting to have their pictures taken. There's just water from a single pump, and as yet, no irrigation through the village. But Patrick and I have been talking about our plans to provide solar pumps so that we can improve that. And there's no electricity in this village apart from solar charging for phones and lights. There's electricity in Nambuma, and Patrick, you have electricity yourself, don't you? But there's not many people do. But I just want to say how wonderful the people are. It was a joy to be there, incredibly friendly, incredibly nice, wonderful people. Just nice to be able, wonderful to be able to meet them. We've agreed that permaculture is the solution to hunger because it's a vastly more resilient form of agriculture, both to climate change and disease, than monoculture crops such as maize. And that's because a huge diversity of crops is grown in layers, as you all know, trees, shrubs and ground cover crops. And it's an organic circular system using locally produced compost, means that we don't have to use expensive, environmentally damaging chemical fertilizer, and it uses animal manure as well to improve the soil. And the Permaculture Paradise Institute, and there's a picture of Lueo there, who talked with us a couple of years ago, and we visited it in May, is now grown to 23 acres and is just magnificent and really does demonstrate the effectiveness of permaculture and growing a grassroots permaculture movement in Malawi as in other countries. So very exciting. There's a photo there of some of the ethics that underlie permaculture in Africa: caring for the earth, caring for people, and fair shares, the last being extremely important. So that's just a bit of context. And I'm now going to show the video, all being well, that James Willis made a couple of years ago, which will give you a good introduction to what this is all about.
This is the dirty little secret of adult film festival.
Yes.
Not so long ago, the rains in southern Africa came regular as clockwork, and there was enough food for everyone, and farmers had little need to grow more than a single crop, maize. But in recent years, the rains have become erratic and no longer predictable. The droughts come more often, and new pests have arrived to eat the crops. Climate change has led to failed crops, poverty, and more human hunger. The answer was not to try to grow more and more maize with artificial fertilizers, but to show people how to improve the land and adapt to changing conditions. That meant planting trees, putting goodness back into the soil with manures, and growing a wide variety of traditionally grown fruit and vegetable crops, so that if one failed, there would always be another. That is what permaculture means. To help kick-start this revolution, Lueo Bizik, a brilliant young trained permaculturalist in Malawi, set up his Permaculture Paradise Institute, training people from all over Africa how to farm better. And just as the pandemic started, Alton Climate Action Network, ACAN, got together with the Gumbi Education Fund to start sending boys and girls from the impoverished village of Gumbi for 6-month courses at the Institute, while their schools were closed. They came back enthused and keen to show people what the land could provide, and they asked for a demonstration plot to show what could be done. So we bought them 3 acres of cheap, abandoned land that no one thought possible to farm. And now there are 12 fully trained young permaculturalists, advised by Lueo, together creating a food forest for all. In just 5 months they have worked the land, dug a well, built shelters, and planted 20 crops, including sweet potatoes, beans, sweet basil, papaya, mango, bananas, mulberries, yams, gourds, pumpkins, okra, blackjack, apples, and avocado. It is a small living paradise and a vision for the future. And soon they will start training people from other villages and selling surplus food. The priority now is to help the young farmers to develop their farm, especially by purchasing some animals for them. This is for food, but especially for animal manure. They need a mixed plant and manure compost to improve the fertility of the soil. And the vision is for the Gumbi Alton Paradise Project to be a resource centre linked to the Permaculture Paradise Institute, training local people in permaculture techniques to help to spread the agroecology revolution now taking place in Malawi. So please contribute if you can. First, because you care for these lovely people, and because this project transforms lives with the potential to prevent endemic malnutrition in the local villages. And also because this is that rare thing, a genuine partnership between local people in Malawi and two small charities. There are no overheads and no intervening management. Gumbi Education Fund and Alton Climate Action Network link directly with the young farmers. And finally, please contribute because you care for the world. We all share the same atmosphere as Gumbi, and a pound spent there will achieve far more than a pound spent in
Okay. So, I want to introduce Patrick to you, who's on the call. On this photo, Patrick's on the left with Lueo, the director of the Permaculture Paradise Institute, where our Gumbi young farmers were trained. And Patrick's our unpaid, except for a small honorarium, community organizer in the Gumbi villages in Malawi. And his day job is as a community health worker with the Ministry of Health. So nutrition is a very important part of his life. And he worked with John Bidal for 20 years. So Patrick, you there, would you like to talk to us about the Gumbi Alton Permaculture Project from your perspective?
Yeah, I think everyone is hearing me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Good.
Thank you very much. You are most welcome. Thank you very much for your participation. I will not take much more time, but I wanted maybe just to give you a short brief on how I met John Vida, then why are we talking of permaculture at the moment. I met John Vida some years back. It was in 2001 when Malawi was badly hit by hunger. So being a journalist, John Vida visited Malawi after he read some of the articles which were published internationally about the hunger which Malawi had in that time. So when we met in 2001, John Vida also had another visit in 2002. So in that time, that's when John decided or was asking people what can be the solution to the hunger which Malawi had in 2001. So some members were talking of education, some members were talking of distribution of fertilizer, some members was talking of about giving cash to people for farming, but the best was education. So that's when we introduced Gumbi Education Fund. But within the time we have been doing Gumbi Education Fund, we have been sourcing the ways on how to have sustainable agriculture for the community. Because the problem was people were only depending, or up to now, they are still depending on mono agriculture, that's depending only on maize. So in 2020, that's when we discovered about permaculture. So that's when we made Luwayo Bees Week, that's in Nchinji. So John Vidar and Jenny Griffiths met and discussed on how we can move forward to make sure that people should have a knowledge on permaculture. So we sent some of the boys and girls from Gumbi community and learn about permaculture in Nchinji, with the support from Jenny Griffiths and as well as from John Vidar and the Gumbi Education Fund. So these boys are like Martins and other friends. They are doing now homestead farming. This is the only way which we have seen that we can eliminate hunger or reduce malnutrition in the community, because we are now not going to depend only on maize, but we'll be able also to depend on other types of crops, which the community were taking them not as important, but they were only depending on maize as monoculture. So we said, no, let's reduce this type of depending only on maize. So that's why now Jenny Griffiths is coming on, and with our major donor who has been helping us in improving how we can be doing our permaculture activities. So I should not maybe take much more time on explaining, but this is why we are here talking of permaculture together with Gumbi Education Fund. So thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much, everybody, for taking part to this fundraise. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very clearly explained, Patrick, that was. So now Patrick mentioned Martin, who's one of the young farmers, and he sent these photos through the other day. By the way, there's a very good Facebook page for the Gumbi Alton Paradise Project, as we used to call it, which is well worth joining. It's a group page, and several of the young farmers are posting on that. And these are recent photos from Martin, who works both on the main demonstration farm that I will show you in a minute, lots of photos, and on his own homestead farm. So the young farmers, many of them have family plots because they're subsistence farmers. Now, Martin sent through a couple of days ago a video which you don't need to hear the sound of, because it's actually, unfortunately, of very poor quality. I'm very sorry about this, because Martin has taken a great deal of trouble to produce this video, but the sound is so poor that there's no point in playing it. But I'll try and get the pictures to run, and I've turned the volume up on my computer and listened to it several times, and I'm going to paraphrase what Martin is saying, because the messages he gives are very important. And try and imagine yourselves out there with him, surrounded by his wonderful bananas. So I'll just see if this runs. Is the picture working for you?
Yes.
Right, so that's working anyway, that's good. But we'll keep the sound off because it's almost inaudible. So Martin was trained at the Permaculture Paradise Institute along with 15 other young farmers, and he cultivates now using permaculture on both the main demonstration farm and his own homestead plot. They call these plots, and Martin uses the term in this video, they're gardens, which I think is lovely. They don't make the distinction between gardening for food and gardening for decoration, which I think is absolutely right. And he's had this video filmed in his own garden, as you can see. He says in it that he planted more than 50 bananas last November, and just last November, so a year ago, and hopes to be able to harvest some fruit soon. And he says that the banana trees are producing young ones, as he says, they're suckers, so that he can share those with others. And it's a theme of what Martin says in this video, that he wants to share with his community. And he explains about permaculture, and especially that it is a design system. So a phrase he uses a lot. He's been very well trained by Lueo Biswick at the Permaculture Paradise Institute. And permaculture uses what we would call whole systems thinking about relationships between plants in a way that mimics the way nature operates, and focuses on sustainability of life, as Martin puts it. And he feels passionately that he wants to show people in the community and share his knowledge of permaculture. And he's managing his own nursery, all these tree seedlings you can see there, growing trees for planting in the community, natural trees that grow locally, and fruit trees like mangoes, for example. And he repeats again, he's strongly focused on helping people in the community and on being in harmony with nature. And he says towards the end that this is just the beginning of the good things that are coming, the knowledge that he wants to share with the community. And he says, thanks to us at Alton Climate Action and the Gumbi Education Fund for helping them and supporting them. And he concludes with the phrase that Patrick Kamzitu gave us back in May, which was on my very first slide, together we can, and says, let us join together to overcome the crises caused by climate change. So that's a précis of what Martin is saying. I could only hear some of it, but by repeated listening, managed to put together that summary, which I hope does justice to what he was trying to communicate to us in this video that he made specially for us. So I'll stop it there, about halfway through, and move on. But I hope that message directly from one of the young farmers you found as inspirational as I did. So I'm now going to just go through a few slides I've put together about all the progress that's been made jointly with the community, with Patrick coordinating it all. Done an awful lot of work in the last 18 months or so, because as Patrick said, we've benefited from a major donor who approached us out of the blue last summer, having found us on our website, which is just amazing, and got in touch and was looking for a sustainable agriculture project to support in Africa, and Malawi in particular, where she has done a lot of work herself supporting women's small businesses. And it was brilliant to visit back in May and see all the progress that's been made. Loads of different crops, which is the whole point. So if one doesn't work, doesn't harvest well, there are others, and a whole range of crops that you can see listed there, and that's only a small number of them. I love the plant a tree, plant a vine idea, because if you get a vine like passion fruit growing up a tree, it's less likely to be cut down for firewood, which is a topic I shall come back to in a minute. Patrick Kamzitu sent through these wonderful photos of some of the crops back in August, very wide range from salads to fruit showing there. So it really does work. And we've been able to support the development of a lot of infrastructure on the farm. This photo was taken before the roof was finished at the top there, but this picture of some of the young farmers was taken during Jen and my visit in May. It's used as a meeting room, and we sat and talked with them there. And I've included a photo of the way the roof is constructed internally, because I think it's just brilliant detail of the sowing there. We've paid for provision of water storage and basic irrigation. More is needed. We really do need a borehole on the site, but this huge pond, capacity 50,000 litres, was put in earlier this year, and a solar pump together with a big tank that you can see, the green tank at the back there, and hose to go with it. And the solar pump seems to be working very, very well, and want to buy more of those. for use in the village on homestead plots, because they make a huge difference. Because otherwise, the farmers have to lug water from their wells by hand, and that's well, you know from your own experience in your gardens how difficult that is when you've got a large area to cover. We've also been able to buy more animals for manure, and also they're used for food. But manure is the key thing, because we're not relying now on chemical fertilizers. So there's a picture there and another video, which I won't show because of the time, but Patrick put this together, and it shows the composting system that's been developed, which is huge and very successful. Let's move on. Right. So homestead permaculture farming, as we've mentioned, on householders' own land, we've provided some really quite basic, it has to be said, tools, wheelbarrows, shovels and rakes, and you've got pictures here of those in use, including a couple of our women farmers, I'm delighted to say. It's Ivy in the middle with her cassava crop there. The plan is to develop the farm as a training centre for farmers from the community and in the wider area. And to that end, Susan, our donor, has funded these wonderful, beautiful ensuite rondavelles. They are really, really lovely. I love this photo. I've got it on my phone. So for use during training courses. So they have showers and toilets in them. And we've also been able to erect a couple of more composting toilets. The trick is to use the grey water from both showers and toilets. So always plant a banana tree nearby, which uses the grey water, the wastewater from that, and they always grow very, very well. A priority going forward is demonstrating cooking with solar power rather than firewood. Picture on the left here shows a pot in which sema, which is the maize porridge, the staple porridge, has been cooked. And if you look at the back of the photo, you'll see 3 bricks with some wood, and that's how it's cooked. And vast quantities of wood are used, and we were absolutely astonished to see people cycling around with these vast quantities of wood and charcoal, if you can see in the slides, being distributed. But I bought a book about birds in Malawi because I love birds, and the very first sentence was that the sands of time are running out for Malawi's wildlife because of deforestation for firewood and charcoal, and of course contributes to climate change as well. So our current focus, more or less as we speak, is building a training kitchen with solar-powered cookers and food storage. So we've done a lot of research. Susan has done a lot of research into solar-powered cookers. They use a lot of power, of course. And we've selected for now an electric induction hob that's been developed in Uganda and has recently won the Africa Prize. Paul Sado is the inventor there. So we're hoping to buy 2 or 3 of those next year, and there will also be solar drying for food storage and a solar powered fridge freezer and chest freezer as well for storing crops. So priorities going forward, following our mission, food every day and together we can, joining together, is dissemination, developing the farm as a training centre for villagers from local communities, to be part of the grassroots permaculture movement that's developing in Malawi, not being particularly well supported by the government, but is developing from the bottom up. And we're working on a training syllabus at the moment, a borehole for improved irrigation, ideally more land because the farm is really too small. And as I've already mentioned, developing irrigation for the farmers' own plots with more solar pumps and hose pipes that can be shared amongst them. So those are our plans for the future. And just a final slide, if you do want to donate, it's very, very easy. If you go on ACAN's website, altonclimatenetwork.org.uk, press the donate button, you'll see 2 buttons, one to donate to Alton Climate Action and one to donate to Gumbi. And you can do it through that very easily. So I shall stop screen sharing now. Come back to you all, and would welcome questions. Is Patrick still with us? Yes, he is. He's there.
Yes, I'm still. Yes,
yeah,
I'm
great.
still with you.
Yeah, lovely. So I'm sure Patrick would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Go for it.
May I ask a question? I was wondering what the pigs eat.
Right, good
What are
question.
the pigs fed on?
Patrick, what are the pigs fed on? They're waste crops, I think, is the answer.
Okay,
Yeah,
waste crop.
I think so. Is that right, Patrick? What do the pigs eat?
Yeah, okay, I'm back now.
Yes, we can
What's
hear you.
your question?
Yes. What do the pigs eat? Francis is asking.
Yes,
Can you hear?
Oh, let me just mute my video.
Right.
Yes, to hear you properly. Yeah, okay. What's your question? What do pigs eat?
Yes. That's right.
Okay. Pigs usually eat the remainings of some of the crops which we do plant on our gardens. As well, we feed the pigs with vegetables. I think Jenny Griffiths show you some of the vegetables, some of the fruits which we do have on our farm. So we want to have a cycle of the food which we do have on our farm. So some of the foods which we do harvest on the very same farm, we feed them to the animals. So by the end of the day, the animals give us manure. So we use manure to plant more crops. So this is the cycle which mostly we are depending on.
Thank you.
Right.
Patrick, may I ask, are pigs the only animals that are on the homesteads, or are there other animals as well, but mainly pigs?
Well, the pigs are on the demonstration.
Did Patrick hear that?
Mainly at the moment,
Yeah.
yes, mainly the animals are being kept at the at our farm, but it was in June we did what we call person system. So each of the household farmer, the one who is doing homestead, at the moment have got a pig, at which he is layering that pig for manure and as well as for to use to grow other crops. So if it can be able, I can show you one of the pictures which we had for household person system. Let me just check if I can have one.
I think Patrick's much better at sharing than I am.
Yeah.
He's younger.
Younger, yes, quite.
Tech savvy.
Yes. Right, there's an important question appeared in the chat from Sheila Adam, which I'll try and answer in a minute. Are you finding it, Patrick?
Yes, I will find it. Yeah, so the time I'll be maybe finding out about the picture, if there might be another one who might have
Yes.
another
Okay.
question.
Well, I'll pick up Sheila Adams'
That would
question
be-
here in the chat about energy, which is very important. It's been preoccupying us for some time. We had a dream actually of having something called a solar mini grid, which is being developed in Africa, which is like a shipping container stuffed full of batteries inside, and has arrays of solar panels on the top and is mobile. And there is one in Dedza, a couple in Dedza over in the west of Malawi. We've been reading about them. But the cost for our meager resources is totally and utterly prohibitive. So we've had to drop that idea. It would have been brilliant because we would have been able to run cables from it and probably provide electricity to some of the householders as well. But the kitchen that is near the end of its construction now has been carefully designed to have, I think it's 15 solar panels, Patrick, isn't it, on its roof? And careful calculations have been done that that will be sufficient to power probably 3 of the Maxol stoves I showed you on my slide, which are 2 hob induction stoves. Yeah. And then also for solar powered fridge, freezer and chest freezer, which don't require nearly so much power to run. So we think we've got enough to do a development project with a solar powered training kitchen that doesn't require the use of firewood. So we are testing it. You know, this is a demonstration farm, so we will be testing all that out. And I think the Maxol cookers in Gumbi will be the first of those in Malawi. We've looked at all sorts of cookers and talked to Luea Biswick about them as well. It's a very rapidly developing technology, and not all of them seem to be very effective. But we think the Maxol ones, as far as we can tell from the research we've done, will work. So fingers crossed. But if anyone's got a couple of 100,000 to spare, do get in touch, because it would be fantastic to have one of these solar mini grids. You had a visit, didn't you, Patrick, from a consultant to discuss a solar mini grid a few months ago. But it's just too expensive, unfortunately, for us. Maybe we'll, you know, if we can form a better
Jen
partnership.
Vidal's had her hand raised for a while to say something.
Sorry, Ellen.
Right. I was just going to say that we did put solar on the original building at the farm was a storeroom, and we've had solar on that for a while because we did get a donation from Dale Vince of Ecotricity. But yes, so we tried to, I think Patrick tried to run a cable out to the classroom at the farm, but it didn't really, for some reason that wasn't very practical. But yeah, it's great that the kitchen's going to have.
I mean, it's not difficult for lighting and so on. It doesn't use a lot of power, but cookers, as we all know, are completely different order of magnitude of power requirement. So yeah, perhaps Dale Vince would like to find a couple of 100,000 for a mini grid. Anyway, we're going to do it this way, and we've done a lot of work on it, so hopefully it will work. Any other questions or comments? And thank you for your comments in the chat, by the way. Very welcome. Yeah, any other?
There's a question about whether you've looked at efficient wood burning cookers. Jenny?
Yes, we have, and they would be better than nothing. But we really would like to try and move over to solar rather than relying on wood. You know, ideally. So we think it's worth having a demonstration kitchen that tries that out. If it fails, then yeah, we'll go back to efficient wood burning cookers. They do exist, of course, and are being widely used. I mean, there's all sorts of technologies being experimented with across the global south, aren't there, as many of you will know. Becky's nodding her head. Yeah. So, but we thought we would, as it's a demonstration farm, try out the latest solar technology.
Do you have a target figure for the 2025 fundraising appeal?
The 5,000 is what I have asked for on the website, which would cover quite a lot of what we've talked about. The challenge going forward, by the way, which is not part of the fundraising appeal, is to develop a business model for training farmers. So which is a revenue stream, yeah, because the trainers need to be paid, the farmers need to be paid, allowances, Patrick's been explaining this to me, which the government requires, quite rightly, that people are paid during training. So it requires a revenue stream. We've got to work out a business model for that. I haven't really begun any detailed work on it yet, but it's my project for the winter to do so. Yeah. But that's not part of this appeal. This appeal is to what was on my slide, the solar power and including irrigation pumps for the village, which I think is really important. The solar irrigation pumps work well, don't they, Patrick? And they just have freestanding solar panels, as you saw on the slide for those. So, yeah.
I have a second question.
Yes.
I suppose it was just to ask Patrick and Jen and you, what's been the most surprising thing, the thing that you didn't anticipate, either positive or negative?
Goodness me.
Go on, Patrick.
Or Jen.
About what? About what we saw, about the whole project?
The whole project, yeah.
Oh,
That's so.
I think just how much difference it makes, that it really makes an enormous difference when we help even a little bit. What can happen when somebody goes to school, and then somebody like the wonderful James Gamani, who's now helping Patrick, has gone through university, our first university beneficiary, and then to look at the farm and how that can just transform an area. What it looks like. I mean, we saw pictures at Luea's of how it looked before and after, and the same is true of our farm now, and how enthusiastic people can be and how positive that can make people be. So it's just the most wonderful, positivity of it, and how grateful people are as well, and how appreciative.
Patrick, what do you think? The question from Sheila was, what's the most surprising thing, did you say, Sheila? Yeah.
Maybe the surprising, the surprising thing maybe, which I can say that we can have, is on how people are now trying to get permaculture, or how they are trying to change the way of living compared to how it was in the past 10, 20 years ago. This is so surprising, because once we are talking to people about change on the way of agriculture, they have been depending on mono agriculture.
Yeah.
So a thing which I have seen is how positive people are reacting to the project. That's very wonderful, because it seems people now are tired of only depending on one type of agriculture or one type of system in terms of getting food at the household level.
Yeah.
Because what we are looking for is to have a food every day. Each time a person should have a food. Then later on, they can be able to have a time to source other things. If they will fail to source other things, but they will have a food at the home. Once they will have other things outside, they will know that we have got food at the house. So what we are focusing on is to have a food every day, food every time. not money, not cash, but food.
Food.
Something
But
to
food.
pick every day. Something to pick.
Yes,
And
exactly.
nutritious
Something to
food.
pick.
Yeah,
And
nutritious food. Yeah.
This is what we are focusing on. So if we can join hands together, we can reduce malnutrition as well.
Mm.
If we can join hands, we can do this. So I've seen that community is responding positively to this project.
Mm.
And a challenge which I'm now seeing in the future is that the way we are doing our activities, it's like a minimal. We can't be doing it at a broader or at a larger scale. For example, if we can have maybe 200 households to advocate them for a permaculture activity, maybe within 3 months we can't manage because we don't have resources.
Mm.
But if we can have resources, we can reach more.
Yeah,
so more people, they might be depending or they might be requiring the needs from us. We are advocating for permaculture. More people we can reach because we have got now resources.
Exactly.
So the challenge is there is a lot of people demanding to know about permaculture, but we don't have resources. Maybe I can respond to that way.
Quite. Well said, Patrick. I think that forms a very fitting conclusion, actually, to this event. I think for me, it's sort of surprising. It's very moving that a small community such as Alton, can partner effectively with a community 4,000 miles away and develop close working relationships, I think based on mutual respect. That's what it feels like to me anyway, and make a difference, because we are a small community. This is not a community of huge donors with hundreds of thousands of pounds, but nonetheless you can make a real difference and make climate justice the beginnings of a reality on the ground out there, make some sort of difference to the ravages of the climate crisis, which is what was the inspiration behind this project. So there we are. So it's just after 7. Unless there are any other particular comments, I think we should stop because we said we would last for an hour. I'm sorry about the mess up earlier, but it went well.
Yeah, it's on the slide.
And thank you very much indeed, particularly to Patrick for getting a decent internet connection to me this evening, for your amazing contribution. We had hoped to have a few of our graduates join, but they've obviously not managed it because of the internet, I expect. So thank you all ever so much for coming, and look forward to keeping in touch with you all. We will circulate the link, and do tell everybody else about it as well.
Will do. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you,
everyone.
Patrick, as well.
Bye-bye.
Excellent presentation. Thank you all.
Thanks, Pat.
See you all. Thanks for coming.
See you soon.
Really appreciate your interest in this.
A pleasure. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks, Jenny. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, well done.
Thank you.
I'll speak soon.
Osa